Men who spent their entire 20s and 30s getting ignored, not getting matches, not getting callbacks, going on dates where the woman across from them was already checked out before the appetizers showed up. Those same men are suddenly getting serious attention from women who, 10 years ago, wouldn't have given them 5 seconds. And I'm not talking about attention from just anyone. I'm talking about women who are educated, who have good jobs, who are attractive, who had every option in the world at once. Women who had actual lists. Women who used to filter men the way you'd filter a job application. Height requirement, income requirement, lifestyle requirement, car requirement. Women who turned down genuinely good men over and over again because something was always slightly off from what they had in mind. And now, those women are the ones reaching out first, suggesting dates, talking about the future, moving fast. Mom and the men getting this attention are confused. They're thinking, did I finally figure something out? Did I finally become the guy women want? Did I finally make it? I'm going to tell you something right now, and I need you to actually hear it before you react. You didn't become more attractive. You didn't level up in some way that suddenly made you irresistible. Look at yourself honestly. You probably have less hair than you did at 28. Your metabolism isn't what it was. You've got stress on your face that wasn't there before. Nothing about you physically improved. So, why is this happening? The answer has nothing to do with you. And once you understand what actually changed, you will never look at this kind of attention the same way again. Because what looks like desire from the outside is often something completely different up close. And walking into it without understanding what it actually is might be the most expensive mistake you ever make. Let me show you exactly how this works from the beginning. Picture a woman. Let's call her Nicole. She's 25. She works in marketing, makes around $42,000 a year, shares an apartment, drives an older Honda. Nothing about her situation is remarkable, but she downloads a dating app and within 72 hours she has over 200 messages. Not from average guys, from men in their late 30s who own property, men who make six figures, men who take her to restaurants where the bill is $200 and they don't flinch, men who are 6'1", work out, have interesting lives, and text her back the same night. And Nicole starts going on dates with these men, and they're great dates, and she starts building a picture in her head. This is what's available to me. These are the men I can get. This is my level. And from where she's sitting at 25, that conclusion makes complete sense, because she is getting them. They are showing up. The evidence in front of her every single day says, you can have this. What she doesn't understand, what almost no 25-year-old woman understands, is that attention and commitment are two completely different currencies. Those successful men in their late 30s taking her to nice dinners are not thinking about building a life with Nicole. They're enjoying the company of a young woman with no baggage, no complicated history, no pressure. It's casual, it's fun, it's easy. And the second it starts feeling like more than that, they quietly disappear and find someone just like her who's also 25. But Nicole never sees the full picture. She sees the dates. She sees the attention. She sees what seems like proof of her own value in the market, and she locks that picture in. This is my baseline. This is what I deserve. This is what I'm holding out for. So when a normal 27-year-old guy shows genuine interest, decent looking, makes $58,000, drives a regular car, lives in a decent apartment, would actually commit to her, she swipes left without thinking about it. He doesn't match the picture. He's not in the same league as the men she's been going out with, and she has hundreds of other options, so there's zero reason to settle. Here's what the actual filtering looked like, and this is based on real data from dating platforms. Women between 22 and 28 reject roughly 80% of men who show interest based on height and income alone. Factor in looks, lifestyle, and general vibe, and you're down to about 3 to 5% of available men making the cut. And in those 3 to 5%, the men at the very top of the pool, they know exactly where they sit. They have options everywhere. Why would any of them lock down one woman when they can date attractive women in their 20s indefinitely? The math doesn't register yet because Nicole is 25 and she has time. She'll get serious about relationships later. Right now, she's focused on her career, her friends, her experiences. The right man will show up when she's ready. She just has to keep her standards and not settle. Fast forward to 31. Nicole is doing better at work now, making closer to $68,000, feeling good about her life. But the dating market shifted while she wasn't paying attention. Those successful men in their late 30s who were taking her out at 25 are now chasing women who are 24. Nicole isn't the youngest option in the room anymore. She's competing with women 5 to 7 years younger who have exactly what she had at 25: youth, optimism. Yeah, no weight from years of bad dates and failed situationships. The matches slow down. The quality drops. The men reaching out aren't the same caliber as before. But Nicole's standard hasn't moved because her self-image hasn't moved. She still believes she deserves what she was getting at 25. So she keeps filtering, and she starts hearing herself say things she never thought she'd say. Where are all the good men? Why is everyone already taken? Men can't handle a woman who knows what she wants. These aren't observations. They're coping mechanisms, ways of explaining why the market changed without admitting that her position in it changed too. At 31, she still has real options. But the men showing genuine interest, the ones who would commit, who are solid, who would actually show up, she's still filtering them out. Because she remembers 25. She remembers what was available to her, and she's convinced that memory is still accurate. Here's where everything flips. I'm somewhere between 36 and 40. A switch gets thrown that can't be unthrown. If she wants biological children, the window is closing, and it's not subtle about it. A woman at 25 has roughly a 25% chance of getting pregnant per cycle. At 38, that drops to around 11%. At 40, it's closer to 5%. At 43, you're below 2%. These aren't opinions. This is medical reality. And fertility treatments sound like a solution until you look at the actual success rates. IVF at 40 works about 15% of the time per cycle, and each cycle costs between $12,000 and $20,000. The biological clock isn't a metaphor. It's a countdown. And at 38, it's loud. Even if children aren't the issue, the dating pool itself has changed in ways that are hard to overstate. The successful, attractive men her age, the ones she set her standards around, most of them are partnered now. The ones who aren't are either dating women 10 to 15 years younger, carrying serious baggage from a divorce, or have issues that become clear pretty quickly once you're around them for more than a few dates. The pool of genuinely available, healthy, relationship-ready men her age went from narrow at 31 to nearly empty at 39. And suddenly the men she spent years filtering out look completely different. That's when Gary enters the picture. Gary is 43. He's not ugly, but he's not turning heads. He's average in pretty much every way you can measure. Regular job, decent income, nothing impressive. Oh, normal car, fine apartment, no big stories, no exciting lifestyle. He's not the guy women have ever gotten excited about. He's the guy women described as really sweet, but just not their type. He's the guy who got rejected so many times in his 30s that he almost gave up on dating entirely. Gary at 28 would have been completely invisible to Nicole. She would have seen his profile and felt nothing, and moved on in under 3 seconds. But Gary at 43 is still exactly who he's always been. Steady, one available, willing to commit. And Nicole is looking at him now and thinking, okay, maybe. Not because she suddenly sees something she missed. Not because she finally understands that looks don't matter and character is everything. But because the men she actually wanted are gone, and Gary is there, and Gary is real, and Gary is interested, and her timeline is not something she can keep ignoring. So she starts dating Gary, and Gary cannot believe his luck. This woman, attractive, educated, now that she has her life together, is actually into him. After years of being the guy nobody got excited about, someone finally sees him. He goes all in. He's attentive. He puts in real effort. He makes plans. He shows up. He thinks, this is it. This is the person I was waiting for. What Gary doesn't fully see is that Nicole is with him the way you take a job that isn't your dream, but pays the bills. It's not that she feels nothing. It's that what she feels isn't what she always imagined it would feel like. It's quieter, more practical, more like relief than excitement. And if you're paying attention, you can see it. Because when a woman settles, real settling, not the healthy kind where you realize character matters more than height, it shows in specific ways. Here's what to watch for. She moves fast and the urgency is about her timeline, not about you. 3 months in, and she's talking about moving in. Beyond 4 months, and she's bringing up the future in ways that feel rushed. This isn't because you swept her off her feet. This is because her clock is loud and you're available, and she needs to lock something down before the window closes completely. She keeps telling you about her type, usually framed as a compliment, but listen to what she's actually saying. You're not usually my type, but there's something about you. I normally go for someone more driven, but I think I was being too rigid. I used to only date taller men, but I'm more open now. She's telling you directly. You are the exception she made because the rule stopped working. She compares out loud. Her ex took her to better restaurants. Her ex was more spontaneous. Her ex had a nicer place. She's not doing this to hurt you. She's mourning out loud. She's grieving the version of her life she expected to have, and occasionally she can't keep it inside. She's never fully satisfied with what you provide. The vacation you planned is fine, but not quite. The restaurant is good, but she's been to better. The apartment is okay, but she imagines something different. Nothing is wrong exactly, but nothing is quite right either. She's constantly running what she has against what she pictured, and the gap between those two things never fully closes. She keeps a back door cracked open. Still active on social media in ways that feel like she's maintaining her visibility. Still friendly with men from her past in ways that don't quite add up. Still talks about her options in a way that suggests she hasn't fully closed the question. She's committed on paper, but there's a part of her that hasn't fully committed inside. Now here's the part nobody talks about. What this does to the man over time. Gary starts to feel it. Not in one big obvious moment. In 100 small ones. She sighs at the restaurant he picked. She goes quiet when his car needs a repair. She mentions her ex in a tone he can't quite read. He starts working harder. He starts trying to be more impressive, more interesting, more everything. He thinks if he just does enough, she'll fully arrive. She'll finally be all in. He doesn't know that the thing he's trying to close is not a gap in his performance. It's a gap between who he is and who she wished she was with. The resentment builds on her side too. Not resentment at Gary specifically, resentment at the situation. At the years spent filtering out men like Gary while the men she actually wanted came and went without committing. At the biological reality she couldn't negotiate with. At the version of her future that isn't going to happen. And because she can't direct that resentment at biology or at men who moved on years ago, it finds its way into the relationship, into small arguments about things that don't matter. Sees into a low-level dissatisfaction that's hard to name, but impossible to ignore. Gary ends up in fights he doesn't understand about things that seem small. He ends up feeling like he's always slightly falling short without knowing what the actual target is. He ends up carrying the weight of decisions that were made long before he showed up. Think about what's actually happening. Gary went into this relationship thinking someone finally chose him. Nicole went into it thinking this is the best she can do with what's left. Both of them are operating from completely different understandings of what the relationship actually is. And that gap doesn't get smaller over time. It grows. Now here's what this means for you specifically. If you're a man in your 40s and you're suddenly getting attention from women who would not have looked at you 10 years ago, understand this clearly. The market shifted and you are now in a position you've never been in before. That's real. That's worth understanding. But sudden attention is not the same thing as genuine desire. And walking into the wrong situation because you're finally getting noticed after years of being overlooked could cost you more than all those years of rejection combined. You now have actual options, maybe for the first time. Women in their late 20s who want stability are genuinely interested in established older men. Women your age who figured things out early are also out there. You don't have to take the first serious interest that comes your way just because it's been a while and someone finally showed up. Ask yourself honest questions before you go all in. Would this woman have been interested in you 10 years ago? Is she moving fast because you're that good or because her clock is loud? Does she light up when she talks about you, or does she seem like she's making peace with something? Is she excited about who you are or relieved to have found someone before it got any harder? Those questions matter more than you want them to, because there is a version of this that works. People do grow into relationships that started as compromise. Genuine affection does develop. Some of these situations become real and solid over time. But you go into it knowing what it actually is, not what you wish it was. You don't confuse being chosen by default with being chosen on purpose. You don't let the flattery of finally being noticed cloud what you're actually looking at. The women who filtered you out at 25 and 30 are not suddenly attracted to who you became. They're adjusting to what's left. That is a completely different thing. and you deserve to be with someone who didn't need the options to disappear before they could see you. That person exists. She might be someone who never played the filtering game as hard. She might be someone who got overlooked herself. She might be younger. She might be your age. She doesn't fit a single description. But she's out there, and she's a completely different experience than being with someone who arrived at you by elimination. The brutal reality of why women over 40 settle for men they once would have walked past is not complicated when you strip the comfortable story away. The men they wanted didn't commit. Time moved. The biology became impossible to ignore. The pool emptied out. And the man standing there, steady, available, just willing, started to look like enough even when nothing on the original list was actually met. That's what you're watching when you see it happen around you. And now that you see it for what it is, you can make smarter choices. You can tell the difference between someone who wants you and someone who needed someone and you happen to be there. Don't be Gary. Or if you're already Gary, at least be Gary with his eyes open. No, because the difference between being someone's real choice and being someone's last resort is everything. And you're finally in a position where you can actually demand the real thing. Don't waste that on someone who just ran out of better options. And look, I want to be clear about something because I know how this kind of conversation can go sideways. This is not about being angry at women. Nicole isn't a bad person. She's a person who got a very convincing but very wrong picture of her options at 25 and held on to it longer than she should have. The men who gave her that wrong picture by dating her casually while never intending to commit, they played their own role in this. The apps that gamified the whole thing and made hyperselectivity feel normal and even smart, that's part of it too. Nobody sat down and designed this outcome on purpose. It just happened because of how incentives work and how humans respond to what's right in front of them, but the outcome still lands where it lands. And the man who pays the price for all of it is the one who shows up at the end when the other options are gone. Gary didn't deserve that. The guy before Gary, who got turned down at 28 for being half an inch under 6 feet, didn't deserve that. The guy before him, who got rejected because his car wasn't impressive enough, didn't deserve that. A lot of genuinely decent men got filtered out over a lot of years by a process that had nothing to do with their actual value as partners. And understanding that is not bitterness. It's just accurate. Here's something else worth saying. The men who came out of their 20s and 30s with the most options at 40 are not always the ones who chase the hardest. A lot of the time, they're the ones who stopped chasing, built something real in their own lives, got comfortable with who they were, and then found that the attention came without them having to perform for it. There's something about a man who is genuinely settled in himself that reads completely differently than a man who's still trying to prove something. Women feel that difference immediately, even if they can't explain why. So if you're in your late 30s or 40s and you're reading this, the most useful thing you can take from this is not a new way to be suspicious of women who show interest. It's a reminder to keep building, keep getting your own situation in order, keep developing into someone you'd actually want to be around, not to impress anyone, not as a strategy. Just because a man who has real things going on in his life is genuinely more attractive than one who's still waiting for his life to start. And from that position, when you're actually good on your own, when you don't need the relationship to feel whole, you can look at what's in front of you clearly. You can see the difference between interest that's real and interest that's practical. And you can be selective. You can walk away from situations that aren't right without the desperation of someone who feels like this might be his only shot. Because when you're finally in a position of genuine options, the worst thing you can do is act like you're still the man who had none. The woman who settles and the man who takes the deal because he's finally getting noticed. They usually end up in the same quiet, disappointing place for different reasons. She's thinking about what she gave up. He's wondering why it never quite feels like enough, no matter how hard he tries. And both of them spend years in a situation that could have been avoided if one or both of them had been honest with themselves earlier about what was actually happening. You can see it clearly now. That's worth something. That's worth a lot, actually. The market corrected. You have leverage you didn't have before. Women who never considered you are considering you now. That's all real. But leverage only means something if you use it to find something genuine. If you use it to walk away from the wrong situations instead of jumping at the first one that shows up because you're not used to being chosen. Be the man who finally has options and actually uses them wisely. Not the man who spent 20 years being overlooked and then spent the next 20 being quietly resented by someone who settled for him when her real options ran out. You know the difference now. Yeah, that's the whole point. Let me leave you with one last thing because I think it's the part that actually sticks with people after everything else fades.